If you save to 1 million and you just turned 62, you're probably asking yourself, should I claim Social Security now or wait for a bigger check later? The most common advice out there, we have all seen it. It's a basic catch-up chart that which age you break even if you take it later, and everything above that's more. It says if you wait until 70, you will get the most out of the system. But that advice completely ignores your actual retirement reality, such as your current portfolio, spending patterns, investment markets, taxes, and longevity. But what if we had a rank that gave us a real map of pros and cons so that we can determine which factors may be the most relevant in your scenario? Today, we're going to be breaking down exactly how claiming at 62 or full retirement age or waiting till 70 impacts your income, lifestyle, and long-term retirement. This is a completely different decision for people with a significant nest egg in the ballpark of $1 million or more, because they are dealing with the opportunity cost of their own personal savings and investments. We'll use a specific hypothetical example. Say someone that's 62 years old that saved up $1 million, trying to figure out what choice gives them most security for their financial plan. My name's Boughan. I'm a certified financial planner and founder of Parkmount Financial. And I've personally helped dozens of our clients sort out their Social Security and pensions with planning to maximize for their unique situation. And I've seen it all. People with $1 million saved, still second guessing when to claim, and others waiting so long they miss out on years of income they could have enjoyed. The truth, there's no one size fits all answer here. The reality is there is no best way to claim because nobody knows the future. But there is a smarter way to look at this decision. Let's start by answering the big question. At what age should you claim Social Security given a specific financial scenario? But before I dive in, I would like to say that if you're divorced or widowed, then you may have some unique situations that apply to Social Security that won't be covered in this specific video. So I'll look to make a video on that in the future, and it may be useful to spend some time researching the unique aspects of your situation. Now, let's dive into 62. For all practical purposes, taking at the soonest date available for your situation. Claiming at 62 means locking benefits in early, but also accepting a reduction, about 30% less than what you receive at full retirement age. So what happens if you claim at 62 with $1 million saved? Experts often deride this option as impulsive. But if you do this, you immediately reduce the pressure on your investments because you start getting income now, which means you have to withdraw less from your savings. That could protect your portfolio from early withdrawal stress, especially if the markets are down in those earlier. This could be a decision that protects against losses and enable for your portfolio to remain more aggressively invested for longer, potentially achieving higher returns. But why might this backfire? The downside here is that if you live into your late 80s or 90s, you may miss out on thousands in cumulative income from the Social Security system. So how does this impact your retirement? It trades the short-term guaranteed income for a longer-term relative uncertainty. In most cases, it is more comfortable to take Social Security now as opposed to waiting. And this is not to be overlooked as simply impulsive. Taking Social Security now makes you sleep at night better. It may just be the best thing for you, but here is where your situation gets a little bit more nuanced. And this is what you won't find in most places online. First, The research on spending patterns for retirees shows clearly that people spend more in the first 5 to 10 years of retirement, and typically that they will naturally taper off later when they are less active. So while it may be a higher payment later on down the road, that higher payment may mean a lot less if you're spending less in those years. Secondly, there is longevity concerns. If either your spouse or you have concerns about how long you live, it may make sense to take one benefit earlier. And lastly, if you do have a high risk tolerance and you do not need your Social Security because either your spouse is working or you have a pension, it may make sense to just take it earlier and invest the cash. There are some projections that show that can be better compared to wait if returns play out in your favor. But this won't work if you take early because you're working and you have an income above a certain level that will cause part of your Social Security to be deferred automatically, almost like forcing you to take it later if your income is too high. So that's the early path, locking in income now, but with a lifelong trade-off. Now, before we jump into what claiming at 70 looks like, I want to pause for a second, because if you're watching this and you're thinking, I have no idea which path is right for me, you are not alone. That's why I created a 5-minute review plan. It's a personalized video walkthrough where I will actually record a breakdown of some of your basic retirement numbers. And it's not a generic spreadsheet. It's your lifestyle, income, and we'll even factor in your Social Security mapped out clearly. This can help you see the actual trade-offs and opportunities for yourself. So click the link below and fill out a short form, and I'll send you over a custom video breakdown within a few days. Now, waiting until 70 is what's next. It increases your benefit by about 8% per year after full retirement age. And that means a benefit that ends up being potentially 76% higher than if you started at 62. So why wait? The math could look great on paper. Higher monthly income, protection against longevity risk, and more room for inflation protection. But here's the key challenge. You have to live long enough to make up those 8 years that you didn't receive any Social Security. How does this affect someone with $1 million saved? Well, you'll need to fund your lifestyle entirely from your personal savings and investments for nearly a decade if you're retired. That requires strategic withdrawals. If you can manage that, the payoff could be substantial. And what is more, taking early may not be the most tax advantage path for most people that have $1 million saved and invested across a variety of different types of accounts: taxable, pre-cash, Roth, and so forth. In other words, depending on your situation, there may be significant tax planning opportunities that you would only get by deferring Social Security for at least a year, 2 years, or maybe close to 70, because of the fact that Social Security is taxed in a peculiar way, where sometimes it can be tax-free, sometimes it's fully taxed, and that depends on a number that's known as your provisional income in the accounting world, which is a factor of your overall income profile. A skilled financial planner or tax professional may be able to help you with the intricacies of how Social Security is taxed if you're not going to figure that out yourself. But even with the tax planning opportunities, as we said, the break-even number can be a lot longer than most projections might assume. And that's because of the time value of which is likely to be into the mid to late 80s of your portfolio if you had to spend it down, as opposed to deferring it and having it grow at an average rate of anywhere from 6 to 7%. All that said, waiting to 70 can be a powerful hedge against longevity. One of the best ways to conceptualize this is as a guaranteed income protection. Annuities have seen a growing popularity amongst consumers in recent years as people are seeking to secure an income stream for life. They see annuities as separate income sources from the volatility of markets. And because they will last for life, even if they run out of money in their portfolio, it gives them a sense of security in their future. So deferring Social Security is basically like purchasing an annuity with your portfolio that you spend down while you defer for those years. Annuity researchers had even said that deferring Social Security is better than any annuity that you could buy on the market because of the inflation adjustments in annual deferral credit being more lucrative than the current market has available for any annuities out there. So waiting until 70 can work, but it requires a lot of discipline and is not for everyone. What if there was a way to avoid the big reductions for taking Social Security earlier and skip an entire 8 years of delay? Well, that's where 66 comes. At 66 or your full retirement age, you receive your full benefit with no reductions. This age is often seen as the safe middle ground. Why choose your full retirement age? Well, for many, it feels like a balanced decision. You avoid the 30%, and you don't have to wait as long as 70. With $1 million saved, this means you have to use some of your portfolio for a few years, then let Social Security take over for a larger share. How does it change the income picture? You reduce the total withdrawal burden on your savings over the long. But it also assumes your investments hold steady during those in-between years. So while it is less risky than 70, it is still a game of timing and market exposure and longevity, which no one knows. But let's break down the numbers. First, let's look at the impact on your portfolio with how long it takes to recover if you claim later and spend down your savings and investments. As you can see in this case, based on an assumed 6% return, the actual break even on your portfolio ends up being further than 24 years out from claiming at 62 compared to taking it at 70. Even though you end up with more money from Social Security, the portfolio takes a longer time to recover. But when we change the markets around, we can show you what it looks like if the markets crash 20% in the first year retirement and then recovers 15% the following 2 years and averages 6% after that. It is a similar pattern, but instead of breaking even at year 25, you break even at close to year 27 or 28 compared to claiming earlier. This is because in this scenario, you're forced to draw down and sell from your portfolio heavily when prices are down, which does some damage that requires even more time to catch up from. Now, in this last scenario, if we simulate this first year bear market and recovery, and then look at your future rates of return at just 7%, which is a little higher, but not crazy, it pushes your break even in your portfolio to 32 to 33 years from your claim date. Now, there are some limitations in these projections. It doesn't include taxes, which is a complex element that needs to be considered on a case-by-case basis. But this does point out that things do not happen in a vacuum, and there are a lot of factors that need to be considered that is very much on a case-by-case basis, and depending on what's going on in the environment. Ultimately, what decision makes the most sense for your retirement? Well, that depends on how long you expect to live, your health, your portfolio strategy, and what kind of lifestyle you want to maintain. The fear of making the wrong decision is definitely real, but with the right framework, it gives you confidence. So whether it's 62 or your full retirement age or 70, the best kind to claim Social Security isn't about chasing the biggest check. It's about aligning the decision with your lifestyle, your savings, and your goals. But here's the thing that most retirees, they run the numbers for themselves. They rely on rules of thumb, and that's where costly mistakes can happen. And that's exactly why we offer a free mini planning review. All you need to do is fill out the short questionnaire, and we'll show you exactly each aspect affects your retirement plan. We'll look at your Social Security, your cash flow, and your retirement outlook. Click the link in the description to get started. The earlier that you get more clarity, the more confident that you'll feel about the years ahead. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.